Hey, Turtle! Stop staring at the marine traffic! The Kickstarter will come when it comes!
Leave me alone. What is up, my friends? Welcome to Showtop Games. I'm your turtle host, and today we'll be doing a casual review of the 1 to 5 player game Nemesis, designed by Adam Kopinski, published by Awaken Realms. And just wanted to let everybody know, I still don't have my copy of Lockdown yet, and I'm doing this review hoping to distract myself from the fact that my game's floating on a ship in the ocean somewhere rather than on my table being played right now. So what's in the box? Well, we got this nice little stand for the game box in case you wanted to display this to your friends. I didn't really have any use for this. Instruction booklet. Reference sheets, very helpful. Wish they included more of these, actually. Double-sided game board. Intruder board. Player mats. And now we got 2 layers of miniatures, tokens, cards, and tiles. In the top tray, we've got the infection scanner, noise tokens, these cool plastic little card holders that hide your card from everybody else and also allow everybody to know which player number you are, just in case they have ulterior motives during the game. You get your character miniatures, also with color-coded bottoms, some alien miniatures and larva miniatures over here, egg tokens over here, your dice, fire tokens, intruder tokens, malfunction tokens, corpse tokens, exploration tokens, door standees, ammo and damage cubes, and last but not least, your engines, escape pods, and cute little first player cat token. And over here in the bottom tray, we have all of our cards. Starting with these miniature ones, we got the coordinate deck, lets you know where the ship's going, the intruder weakness cards, you got your red items, your yellow items, green items, craftable blue items, and specific character starting items over here. Moving over to the larger cards, event deck, intruder attack deck, specific character action decks, and serious wounds for all the fun that you're going to be having in this game. Character drafting cards, contamination cards for even more fun that you're going to be having in this game, and your shady corporate and personal objective cards. And let's not forget the helper cards that help you to remember the phases of the game and also help other people to remember which character you are, just in case they need to kill you. Oh, and if you want to play as the intruder, they got cards for that too. Not sure what these are. Alright. Moving on over here, we got a nice development bag. Just in case you forgot the name of the game, it's there too. These nice little beads you can be using as markers. The room tiles, so that you can use these to explore the ship. And some really nifty miniatures. So we got the queen here, a couple of breeders, and a few adults. So what is this game? Well, Nemesis is a highly thematic, semi-cooperative game where you and other crewmates have woken up from hibernation sleep, with amnesia, of course, so you don't know where anything is, and there seems to be something very wrong. For instance, there's a dead body lying on the floor in front of you, and the ship has been taken over by intruders. Your goal in this game is to not only survive, but also make sure that the ship makes it to Earth, make sure that the ship doesn't explode by the engines failing or malfunctioning, and also to make sure that you accomplish one of your secret objectives that the other crewmates are unaware of. before the game starts, you shuffle these intruder weakness cards and you deal 3, one for the character corpse, the intruder egg, and the intruder carcass. If you can bring these to the laboratory to get analyzed, you can reveal weaknesses of the intruder that makes it easier to fight them off. To set up this game, you're going to want to shuffle all these room tiles so that when you place them on the map, you have no idea which room is which, so that when you go into a room for the first time, this one could be the canteen, this could be the shower room, this one could be the armory, this could be the laboratory. You have no idea because you woke up from hibernation and you're suffering from amnesia. To top it off, these little exploration tokens also get shuffled. Each one is going to have a different event on it that triggers the moment somebody discovers a room for the first time. It could be some kind of malfunction token, it could be a fire explosion, or you could just get slimed the moment you walk into a room. And at the start of the game, the ship's coordinates are going to be set to B. Now the problem is nobody knows where the heck B is headed to unless they go to the cockpit and check for themselves. So for instance, in this scenario, B is heading to Venus, which is not good for the crew. The engines are also going to be randomized. There are 2 tiles each. One of them is going to be damaged and the other one's going to be working. So you need 2 out of 3 engines to have the ship not explode at the end of the game. Taking a peek. Oh, okay, so this one's damaged. This one over here is also damaged, so the ship is already going to explode if nobody fixes it. And, oh, of course, this one's also damaged. The game is broken up into 2 different phases. There's the player phase and there's the event phase. On the player phase, players get to take turns, 2 actions at a time, going from player to player, starting with whoever has the first player token, and it just keeps going and going and going until nobody has any actions left to do and everybody passes. Now each player is going to get a character board that reminds them of the basic actions they can do and things that they can craft. It also keeps track of their light wounds, whether or not they sent the signal during the game, and if their character is slimed or not. They start with a deck of 10 cards and draw 5 to start the game. They have 2 quest items that they can activate during the game and possibly get them an item, like for instance this one gets you an evacuation key, which you can place right here. And they also have a weapon with a certain amount of ammo inside of it. One lucky player is going to get the first player token. Each player is also going to receive 2 objectives at the beginning of the game. Now, one's going to be personal and one's going to be corporate. You don't have to choose which one you're going to keep until the first intruder appears. Not all of them are terrible. For instance, Proper Burial is kind of nice sounding, whereas Greener Pastures is definitely not as friendly. Players can take up to 2 actions on their turn. These actions range from basic movement, where you move from one room to the next, and you roll for noise. So for instance, we'd put a noise token in corridor 4. Or you could do something like careful movement, which allows you to move like normal, but instead of rolling for noise, you get to choose which corridor you place the noise token in. This could be very beneficial because an intruder springs out on you if you roll a noise token on a corridor that already has one. Now, if you're entering a new room with a movement, you're going to have to check the exploration token first. So for instance, this one says that as you enter this room, the door behind you shuts, like so, before flipping over to see that you are in the comms room. When you get to the new room, you always want to set the item number to the item number shown on the exploration token. So for this instance, this would show 1 right at this arrow. This will let players know how many times they can search that room for cool stuff. If you don't feel like moving, you can also pick up objects like this corpse over here, as long as you have room for it, or you can trade items with other crew members, or if you want, you can even craft items if you have the available materials on you. Now, if you find yourself unlucky enough to be in a room with an intruder, you'll be in combat. You'll be able to shoot the intruder if you have ammo available in your weapon, in which case you'll have to roll the dice, but high chances are you'll be unlucky, and if you get something like this, you're not going to do any damage, and you're just going to be wasting bullets. You can also try to attack it with your bare hands, but that might lead to some pretty awful outcomes. So running away will make the intruder attempt to smack you, but sometimes it's not such a bad option. These intruders are really hard to kill. And aside from those basic options, you also have use of specific actions written on the cards, like for instance, you can repair, you can also search, you can also use actions based on the items that you've discovered. For instance, this one allows you to use an escape pod. And last but not least, you can also use room actions. So for instance, the emergency room allows you to treat your wounds, whereas surgery allows you to remove things like parasites inside of you. Or if you're feeling very mischievous, you can go to the generator room and start the self-destruct sequence. It's also important to note that actions are not free, and they do cost a number shown in this white box over here. So for instance, if you did want to use the evacuation key, you would have to discard one card of your choice in addition to getting rid of this key. Other actions, for instance, like this computer skills action, cost 0, which means you just have to get rid of this card here. So as the game progresses, horrible things are going to happen to people on this ship. For instance, as previously stated, if you roll for noise, you are going to place noise tokens in the corridors around the ship. Eventually, the entire ship is going to be filled with these noise tokens, and if you roll for a corridor that already has a noise token, you are going to actually summon an intruder. And let's not forget about the fire that can damage you and spread through the ship. If you get more than 8 of these, the ship explodes. And malfunctions, which prevents you from using actions in a room. If you get more than 8 of these, you guessed it, the ship explodes. And if that wasn't bad enough, there's a chance that your ally might actually try to trap you inside of a burning room. And combat in this game is very difficult. Even if you manage to land a hit on the intruder, you have to draw from the intruder attack deck to see if you actually killed it. So with this number being a 6, you clearly don't have that many wounds on the alien. It still survives. Let's say you spend another shot and you manage to land a hit. You draw again from the deck, but now the health is 5. You still don't kill it. Every single time you attack, you're taking a gamble on how much health that intruder has. And as the game goes on and you're fighting these aliens, you're gonna get light wounds and you're gonna get serious wounds. Like for instance, this one says that the cost for all your item actions is increased by 1. This one says you draw up to 4 action cards instead of 5. If you end up with any more wounds than 3 serious wounds, you are going to die. It's not just the wounds you gotta be worried about, there's also a chance of getting a larva inside of you and ending up with a whole bunch of different contamination cards. Seriously, don't even get me started with contamination cards. I have lost so many games because of these stupid things. Alright, so after the player phase is done and everybody's taken the actions that they needed to take, we move on to the event phase. In the event phase, you move the timer down the track, getting closer and closer to the end of the game. You also check if there's an intruder in your room, so you draw from the intruder attack card. You're going to check for fire damage, so for instance right here, Bunny's in a room with fire, so she's going to get damaged. And then you draw an event card. These are going to be horrifying. And if that wasn't enough, you get to move on to intruder bag development. So in drawing from the intruder attack deck, you're going to check first and foremost to see if the symbols here on the card match the type of intruder that's in your area. If it does match, you have to read the description of the card and see what happens to you. So for instance, in this case, you're going to get bitten. If the character has 2 serious wounds, they die. You can get real unlucky in this game. On the other hand, if the symbol listed here does not match the intruder that you're in the room with, nothing happens and you get off scot-free. And when you're drawing from the event deck, you're usually going to get some pretty bad news every single time you turn the card over. So this one says, flammable compounds. Place a fire marker in the hibernatorium. Wonderful. And on top of that, if this text wasn't bad enough, it also shows you the intruders that are going to be moving around on the map. So for instance, the breeders and the queen are all going to move down their corridor 4. This is going to make it so that the aliens are constantly moving so that you really can't get comfortable with the board ever. Oh, and last but not least, there is the ever so wonderful intruder bag development step. So the intruder bag development step is such a tense moment in the game where you draw 1 token, and regardless of how careful you've been playing, it's just going to force problems on you. So this is going to be an adult symbol, which according to the game book, it says every single player in player order rolls for noise. So if you end up in one of these rooms that's just filled with noise and you're thinking to yourself, oh, don't worry, next turn I'll just get out of here, no problem. Well, intruder bag development is forcing you to roll for noise with a room that's full of noise. Good luck. As gameplay continues, there are also going to be some critical event moments that you're going to want to keep in mind. So for instance, the first time a character dies, the escape pods are automatically going to unlock. When the timer down here reaches 8, the hibernation chambers are also unlocked. And in worst case scenarios, if the self-destruct sequence has been activated and the marble reaches the 3, you cannot turn this off anymore. You might want to get out of the ship at that point. When this self-destruct sequence activates, the tension just builds and builds and builds as you get closer and closer to the ship exploding. And this gameplay is going to go on and on and on until the players are off the ship or they're dead. So when that happens, well, not the dead part, because when the dead part happens, the game's just kind of over. But if they do manage to escape the ship, you still don't know who's won yet. You gotta do a couple checks. So first you gotta check to make sure the engines are all working. If 2 out of 3 of them are green, you're good to go. If not, ship blows up. You also need to check the coordinates. If you're going to Earth, you're usually fine. If you're going somewhere else, again, everybody dies. Contamination check. Next, you have to use this nifty little scanner to see if you're infected. If you are infected, you could again lose the game. And if that wasn't enough stuff to check, you also need to check to see, did you actually accomplish your objective? And if all of those are okay, then you can establish some winners. But it is very easy to lose in this game, because throughout this game, you're going to be constantly struggling and worrying about whether or not you can accomplish your objective, how much ammo you have left in your gun, how much noise you're generating, if your friend's actually trying to help you or kill you, and also if there's an alien larva growing inside of you that might just burst out at the last minute and lose you the game. If you're not working together enough, the ship might explode or end up going to Mars, whereas on the other hand, if you work together too much, you might end up getting betrayed pretty easily before all is said and done. The game is going to create a very tense atmosphere throughout the entire length of its play, and alliances and betrayals will happen as the clock ticks down and more agendas are revealed. Alright, so what do I like about this game? Well, first and foremost, the theme is amazing. I love the old Alien movies. I know this is called Nemesis, okay, but let's be honest, it's pretty much an Alien game, and if you love that theming, already this game's gonna suck you in. I also like the fact that ammo is limited, and that killing these things is kind of a big gamble. You know, I like that. These things are supposed to be monstrous. They're supposed to be scary. They're supposed to be tougher and bigger than you. And it's not supposed to be easy killing them. I think these tokens are supposed to be for when you're running out of ammo cubes, because everybody has so much ammo. I don't think I've ever used one of these. You know, I also like that you have corporate objectives and personal objectives, and the first time there's like a oh no moment, there's aliens on the ship, you have to make a decision. Is corporate more important, or are your personal objectives more important to you? And as you're trying to accomplish the objective that you've chosen, you know that to some extent you have to work together so that the ship doesn't fall apart before you can accomplish what you need to do. So somebody's gonna have to check the coordinates, somebody's gonna have to check the engines, somebody's gonna have to explore the ship and find what you're looking for. But at the same time, as you're all cooperating, there's always a tense atmosphere, because you know at any moment there can be betrayal. And there's a whole bunch of other neat things as well. For instance, discovering alien weaknesses by lugging carcasses and eggs over to the laboratory to analyze them, or removing a larva from your body by going to the surgery room and being knocked out for the rest of the round. Or maybe you've been working on killing an intruder and racking up all this damage, like, oh yes, eventually we'll kill this thing, and then you draw an event card and the alien just crawls into a vent and disappears, only to come back in a later turn to kill all of you. And the miniatures, oh my goodness, these minis are just so gorgeous and so detailed. It makes me really regret not getting them sun dropped. They're just beautiful to look at. Even if you don't paint them, I mean, they're just really nice. And yeah, I gotta admit, I'm a sucker for the art too. I think this is really cool. Ah yes, and kudos to the creators for making variations amongst the adult figures. They didn't have to do this because there's really no gameplay change with it, but it just adds a nice touch to the game because you're not looking at the same exact figure every single time an adult comes out of the bag. I would definitely consider the components in this game to be high quality. Also, one of my favorite mechanics in this game is the room exploration. I love just walking around the ship not knowing which room is which, or knowing that I need to find surgery and I don't know where it is, and the other players are looking around and you're looking around, and as the game goes on, more and more of the ship reveals itself. I think it adds to replayability, and it also makes it so that each time somebody moves into a brand new room, it's exciting. And then to piggyback off of that, when you get to a new room, you also get new items to search for. So each room has a specific counter that you can turn down, which I think is really cool because it's finite resources. And every single time you search for the room, you have to turn the room so that the resources go down. And the items that you get from the room, you don't have to show the other people in your party, which again adds to the tension in this game. And the atmosphere that this game just builds is amazing. I mean, because it's semi-cooperative in nature, you can never really trust anybody. If somebody goes to the cockpit and checks the coordinates, they don't gotta tell you. If they say, yo, yeah, it's going to Earth, you're not really sure unless you go there and check yourself. They can do the same thing with the engines. They might go to these engine rooms and be like, oh, don't worry about it, engine 2 and 3 is working just fine. Meanwhile, underneath it all, their secret objective is to blow up the ship. So when everything is said and done, I mean, this game just creates these memorable moments, these great experiences and stories that you just don't see in any other game. There are times that I will never forget when somebody I've been working with for the past 3 hours all of a sudden just puts me in the airlock and sucks me out. Or another instance when one of my friends tries to escape with another friend and then realizes that that friend was trying to kill him the whole time and ejects the escape pod before he can get in. And it's those moments and those stories that you're really going to remember even after you've put this game away for a while. Everything's fun and games until your trusted teammate tases you and then leaves you for dead. So what are some things that people might not like? Let's start with a small one. The intruder bag is kind of small, usually for these, grabbing token type games from a bag. You want a larger bag so that the tokens can shuffle around a little bit better inside. Really minor gripe, but some people will complain about this. So number 2, this is a long, long game. It is not going to be over in an hour or so. I had games that went all the way up to 4 hours, if I'm being completely honest. You might be playing for a while just to see that the time marker is only on 11, and you're just thinking to yourself, how is that possible? I've been at this table for so long. There are going to be a lot of people that are not going to like to sit through a game of this length, especially if they're suffering from several injuries, are low on ammo, and pretty much know that they can't complete their objectives. You're gonna have to have some degree of patience to play this game. Trapped in a room with an alien and no action cards left? We've all been there. And also, there is a ton to remember. I mean, every single one of these rooms does something different. The game does give you a reference sheet that tells you what each room does, but it's a lot to take in, and honestly, you're going to be passing this reference sheet around a lot for your first couple of playthroughs. And even outside of these room actions that you can take, there's also a lot of other things that you need to keep in mind, like the intruder weaknesses, or how the attack deck works, or your serious wound that you have, or the items that you can craft, or the fact that when you try to attack the queen, you have to draw 2 cards and add the totals together in order to get the health for the queen. A whole bunch of little rules that people tend to forget just because there is such a large volume to remember. And these dice, yeah, you're going to be rolling these dice a lot, so if you don't like dice rolling games and luck dependent games, this game might scare you away because you gotta roll to see if you're gonna hit the alien, and you gotta roll to see where your noise ends up going. You also need to draw from this bag to see what horrifying aliens are going to attack you or what developments happen at the end of the event phase. There's a lot of luck involved in this. Some people might see that as being more thematic, others might just see that as kind of unfun and unenjoyable. And speaking of unenjoyable, some people are going to get into this game thinking, oh, aliens and guns and ammo. I'm gonna have a great time slaughtering these aliens. No, you're not. These aliens are gonna have a fun time slaughtering you. Ammo's really limited. The health of the alien fluctuates in a way that you can never tell, and they run away from you and crawl into vents when you don't want them to. And just attacking an alien is a very, very heavy risk. So if you're coming into this game hoping to slay monsters and shoot aliens and rack up a body count, that's probably not going to happen the way you think it is. It is a tough game. Trying to kill this alien? Well, let's see if you can do it. Oh, that's a miss. Sorry. Oh, that's another miss. But don't worry, you'll get him on your next turn. Let's try this again. Oh, nope, another miss. Sorry. Also, player count. I would not recommend buying this game if you don't have a large group to play with. The game definitely shines at higher player counts because of the secret objectives. If you're buying this for a solo experience or even a cooperative experience with just 2 people, I personally still like it, mostly because of the theme and I like aliens, but it's not going to be as an enjoyable experience as if you were playing with 4 or 5 people. It's going to be a shorter experience, but it might not be as fun, and you might not generate the same amount of tension as you would with higher player counts. And last but not least, and this is kind of a big one, there's a very high chance that you might die really early on and be left sitting out for a while. I mean, there is an alien deck that you can use that the game gives you where you get to play as the alien, but I think when that happens, it kind of breaks the game a little bit because it definitely gets a lot harder for the crewmates. Or let's say you accomplish your objective early and you go to sleep in the hibernatorium, or you go in escape pod and escape really early on in the game. You're gonna be sitting on the sidelines just kind of watching instead of playing at that point. Now, some people are okay with that. Some people just kind of like to watch the world burn, but other people who want an active role in the game for the entirety of its length, they're not going to be happy kind of just sitting on the sidelines watching because either they got unlucky with a draw or a roll, or their objective was really simple and they just escaped early on. I mean, I've seen games of this where a player was out of the game for about 2 hours, and I can see how that wouldn't be super fun for some people. Yeah, so let's say that you climb into this escape pod a little bit too early and you pat yourself on the back and say, hey, job well done to me. I finished my objectives, I have no infections, and I'm gonna win this game. You'll feel pretty proud of yourself until an hour later where you realize the game's still going on and you're just waiting. So overall, I really like this game. Actually, you know what? I love this game. It is definitely one of my favorite games of all time. Definitely not for everybody, but I love the theme. I love the components and the quality. I love the memorable moments that you make in this game. I understand that sometimes you can get knocked out early and you won't feel like you're playing at all, but I'm okay with that. I like to watch. I like to see what happens. Each game is going to be different. All the rooms are always different. Each person's going to choose different objectives, and you have no idea what they chose. So you're never really trusting anybody 100%. But at the same time, you gotta work together to make sure that the ship doesn't explode. And people might not like the randomness and how hard this game is to win, and the fact that you have little ammunition and these intruders are super strong and powerful, but I think that just adds to the theme, it adds to the desperation, and even though this game can take hours, I feel like the time just kind of flies by when you really let this game suck you in. So I highly recommend this game. If you're into the theming of aliens or Dead Space, I think this game does a magnificent job of pulling off the atmosphere and the tension. You're going to get a lot of memorable moments from this game. And if semi-co-op games is your thing, or dice rollers, or games that depend on a lot of luck, where you don't know what's going to happen next, you might also really enjoy this game. On the other hand, if you're not looking for a game for theme and you prefer something like a heavy Euro game and you don't like luck-dependent games and you're not okay with some games being possibly bad and some games being good, and you don't like the idea of players being able to get knocked out, or you just don't want to spend the money that this game costs, then maybe give this game a pass. I give this game a platinum shell.
Hey, Bunny's here! To begin with, this is not a bunny-friendly game. It is unique in terms of content and mechanics, but it's very disturbing. Especially when playing with the creepy sci-fi music that Turtle forced me to listen to every time this game hits a table. It also takes forever, and I feel like nobody ever wins. Aside from that, I think this is actually a good game for turtles that are giant alien fans. But bunnies really don't like the idea of being left alone on the ship while watching her thought-to-be friend turtle sail away in an escape pod. I give this game a bronze carrot.
So as always, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully, I'll get my lockdown copy soon. If there's anything you'd like to add, comment in the section below. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. We'll see you next time.